when my boss died and I was not even 30, maybe 30. I don't know. And I had to write his eulogy on a cocktail napkin and get up in front of like 100 people and then lead his team. And I even went to the CEO at the time who didn't know what to do with our department. And I said, you're going to let me lead them right out of this.
Hey, Nicole, what do you get when a former corporate CEO and a do-gooding executive walk into a recording studio?
Well, Erin, nothing, because the two of us are usually on my couch or Zoom, because wine.
You get a podcast created for Gen X women who are bought into the corporate world, but fed up with the BS.
I know. It's how to thrive the 9 to 5 or 6 or 7.
It's career therapy. It's comedy. It's definitely full on authenticity. Basically, we give you tangible strategies to rise in your career without compromising everything else.
Because work doesn't have to suck.
Hey, my friend, it's Erin here again with another interview. If you're having a good day, it's because work doesn't have to suck podcast. So let's make your freaking day not suck. And I'm going to hopefully do that with Jen Pestikas. Pestikas. It's freaking Greek. You think I could say it. I say Hatzkostas on the reg. I'm super excited to have you meet her. She's somebody that I've gotten to know over the last 4 or 5 months. And actually, if you stay to the end, you can hear about how you could hang out with us, me, her, in Chicago, which I would freaking love. So that's in there too. But just to introduce her, she is currently this SVP of Business Development at what she calls a Chicago area financial institution. But she's also the founder of Brave Women at Work, which started as a podcast, but she has a blog. She has a book in the works, retreats, etc. She's a mover and a shaker, and she's just had so many insights. So some of the things we'll talk about. First of all, she talks early in her career, and she kind of glazed over it, but we went back about this seemingly simple but really bold ask that she made in her first career as a bank teller. We also talk about really it was her greatest leadership challenge that she faced, something that hopefully none of us have to face, and how it actually didn't lead to what she deserved right away. But then she made that happen. We talk about this concept of post-traumatic growth instead of just post-traumatic syndrome, and really the path is yours to take. And she talks about that and how she's wrestled with it. She also gives examples of what does it mean to be brave at work? What are some of the things she's seen and examples of people who are brave at work? And then we also talk briefly about this concept of Chronos, which I loved. It's Greek, and it's this concept of bending time. And we talked about it in relationship to you doing things you love to do in addition to your day job. And that's something that Jen has done really well. And I think this episode in particular, if you are one of those people that's like, I'd really like to start a side gig or write a book or do something different or eventually change careers. How do I do that without just doing what I did, which is like jumping out of a plane 30 feet and bombing yourself, bombing your life? This is a really good episode for you. So I hope you enjoy this interview with Jennifer Pestikas. I'm excited to go backwards because I've spent time with you on your podcast and
Yes,
interviewing with you. I haven't gotten to do the same for you. So turntable time. Love for you to start, tell us a little bit about your journey from sort of being a bank teller to where you are now as an executive. And, was there a moment or two in there that sort of really sort of changed how you approached your career?
Yes. Okay, I'll try to speed that along. So it's a long path right there. So first off, I'm just pleased to be here. So thank you for having me. And I was the shyest kid in the room and didn't have a lot of confidence. And so everything you hear on today's show has been like long cultivated and hard won. So I'm coming from a humble place. I'm coming from humble beginnings. And I was a French and Spanish double degree, and my mom is a teacher, very logical. Mom, she was like, Jen, how are you going to make money? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just love like foreign languages. And so many of us that are in the arts, the liberal arts, we end up bombing out and going to business. And so I got a job in college as a bank teller and found that I was pretty good at it. I really liked it. It also helped me break out of my social shell, like my shyness, because I had to deal with people all the time. And this was before like all of the other there's so much more technology in the tellering and in the banking space now. So there's like more layers. But I mean, I was like old school, like carrying coin and like, fanning out cash at my window and all that kind of stuff. And loved it. And actually would still love it. I don't know if that job will be around forever, but I did love it at that time. And then I did my first negotiation before I went overseas. So I lived overseas for a year, my senior year of college. So I was a teller and then I negotiated. So how about this? Like 18 years old, I asked my branch manager, I'm like, hey, can you keep a teller spot open for me? So I knew even then, I'm like, if you don't ask, you don't get. So I had to write a little paper and they made me present something and they kept me a teller spot open. And so when I got back from graduating college, I had a spot to go to. Fast forward, then I got my Series 7, my 63 life and health license so I could be in the investment side of the world. And that's where my career really took off and then was on the investment side, had a 3-state territory. And I would say I've had mini burnouts along the way. So I would say the first kind of pivot was I was doing 40,000 plus miles on my car a year. And I had a 3-state territory. And I was just like, I would wake up and you probably had this as a speaker. I'll wake up and I'm like, I have no idea where I am. Like, I'm like kind of like running into a wall because I'm like, where am I? Like your body is just still sleeping. And it's like, I don't even know orientation wise where I am. Mm-hmm. And so I knew I needed to get off the road because I was starting to burn out a little bit. So then I did some kind of more home station stuff on the financial service side. And spoiler alert, I'm still in financial services. But I did some stuff that was closer to home. But my big pivot moment was my mentor died of, it's kind of inconclusive, but he was 48 and he died after a back surgery. And the weirdest thing, Erin, is the year before, and he was like, he loved the Rolling Stones. Like he was like a bigger than life figure. You know what I mean? Those sales guys, those old time sales guys that you kind of love, but you're like, wow, you would not make it right now. And so he was that guy. So great to me. And he was my mentor. And I always told him, I said, if you don't slow down, you party hard, hard drinking, hard living, that kind of stuff. And I told him, I go, don't want to speak at your funeral. And then that next year on Valentine's Day, I found out he passed of a back surgery, but he also had some other substances in his system, not being disparaging to him. So I don't know if it was heart. I don't know if it was back. I don't want to say. And then I spoke at his funeral. And then after that, it kind of all hell broke loose for the next 18 months. And it is in my first chapter on resilience, how I had to lead that team. It's the second one on confidence. It's called Imposter. How much imposter syndrome I faced through that, leading that team through grief, leading that team through uncertainty if we were even going to be a team long term. So there's that. And then fast forward, I was there for a few years and then got to that VP table, been there for, 15 to 17 years since then. And I would say the next big pivot for me, kind of fast forwarding, was my own personal burnout in 2019. And I had hair starting to fall out, skin issues, digestive, my body was just like, nope, nope, nope. Like whatever you did, to get here is not going to help you now. And it was scary. It was so isolating. And this was before COVID. And then you get to COVID and it's really isolating. Mm-hmm. And the COVID period, I'm not making light of it because there were so many losses during that time, but it was what I needed to heal. And that's what really started. We've got her in our conference coming up, as you know, Dr. Elise Cortez. When I had her on my show, she introduced me to a concept called post-traumatic growth. She's like, oh, you're in the middle of post-traumatic growth. I'm like, what? And then she explained post-traumatic growth to me. And that's what I've been doing with my work with Brave Women at Work, the podcasts, and how we've come to be introduced. So that's kind of the whole arc and a couple really big inflection points.
I want to dive into a few things there. First, you run a podcast, Brave Women at Work, while working full time. I think so many people listening get caught in that, like, I have my job and I have my passions. What drove you, past probably the barriers, the inertia, time? I mean, you were burnt out, like you didn't have another minute probably to spare.
Mhm.
What made, what was that mindset that had you launch this?
So I just got well, COVID gave me the opportunity to sit still like so many of us. And some people sat still and they got really uncomfortable. And the time and the silence were like a beautiful respite, a beautiful blanket for me. And so I got really quiet inside myself because we weren't doing anything. We weren't going anywhere. We were worried about if we were going to have toilet paper. Remember that?
Yeah.
And so I got quiet and listened to my intuition, and my intuition said, if you want to heal, you have to use your voice. And you're going to, and I'm like, how? Listening. And it says, you're going to start a podcast. And I was like, what? And so I had been a guest on podcasts like this, couple, and really enjoyed it. Did not go to school for podcasting, journalism, broadcasting, any of that kind of stuff. I just found myself navigating to my friendly Amazon and buying a mic, and that's how I did it. And people were very afraid, like my friends and family. Isn't it interesting? Like they love you, but they're also sometimes can be your limiters. Like they can limit you where they're like, you can't do anymore. We want you to sit still. And I was like, but no, this is the first time in years that I really listened to myself. And even though it doesn't make sense to you, this makes sense to me. And I didn't listen to them, thank goodness. And then I heard this. Well, how are you going to find guests and who's going to come on? And, are you going to be a laughing stock? And is anyone going to listen? And I'm like, I don't care about any of that. Like, this is about my healing. And then now, 4 years later, I've got 200 episodes and I've met so many beautiful women like you and had so many amazing experiences and all for the good.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting because it's not that your friends and colleagues are bad people or want
No.
things. It's their own questions, right? It's their own, protection of you that you have to weave through and take about half their advice and throw out half the other. Otherwise, you're not going to move forward. I want to go back to I also want to go back to post-traumatic growth, which you mentioned Elise brought on. Can you tell us more? Like, I can't skip over that without going back and tell us more. You're in this post-traumatic growth. Like, frame that for us a little bit.
Yeah. So I've heard about post-traumatic stress disorder, right? So and I would hear, if you're in war or you have like some sort of trauma, you've had physical, sexual, emotional trauma, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And when Dr. Elise like kind of explained that to me, she's like, we talked offline. She's like, you understand that maybe there's some sort of like small T trauma that you've had that just never went away, or big T trauma. And isn't it interesting? Like when we think about that, we don't think that we have trauma, but we all have some sort of trauma. Like that's life, right? It just kind of like, beats us up a little bit. And so I will just say that I never really processed through my dad's own passing. My dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer when I was 12 and he died when I was 18 and I lived all the way through that. So like basically my whole teen years were like gone, right?
Sure.
I'd had to really advance and stuff. And I thought I was over it and then I wasn't over it and all that stuff. So you had that collective, like life kicks your butt kind of stuff. So I didn't have some monumental big T trauma, but enough where it built up. And so I thought I was like, nah, that can't happen to me. But apparently through the burnout, like there is an inflection point of choice that I have learned. So like when life kicks your butt, and you're like, all right, I can hang out here or I cannot hang out here. Somewhere I picked myself up and I said, okay, I'm going to do something with this. I'm going to mold this into something. I'm going to learn from this. And I've met people where they made the choice the opposite. I'm not saying I'm right or superior. They just like are kind of mired down. They're like anchored into their trauma. They're anchored into their sadness, their sorrow, their inability to move, all that kind of stuff. I was the opposite. I was like, okay, I have to move, like to feel better. I have to take action. And so that essentially is the choice of post-traumatic growth. And it started with the podcast, and then after that, it morphed into women's anthology books, and then it started into retreats, and now it's starting into a conference, and it keeps going and it keeps growing. And people think, I will say, on the opposite again, they're afraid for me. They're like, oh my God, you're going to burn out again. But I am putting all of the frameworks into place. And what they don't understand is this makes me more free. This makes me more creative. This makes me more alive, so that when I do go into my corporate work, I'm a way more badass version of myself than I was before, if that makes sense.
It really does to me. I always say that it was actually just teaching this to, I think it was my son. It was either my son or my daughter who needed the lesson. I think it was my son recently, where it was this concept that if you get excited, oh yeah, we were talking about, 'cause he's in 8th grade. He's not excited about school at all. He's the antichrist of excited about school. Remote work was saying, but he's also the kind of kid who has taught himself how to build a computer. He's taught himself how to build keyboards. He's taught himself how to solve a Rubik's Cube in under 30 seconds. And so we talked about, what is that next thing, and how getting excited about that, because he sort of had that like, well, I'm not going to have time for that. I got to do the school. That can actually propel. It doesn't take it away. So that energy and that excitement, if you're doing the thing you love, even if it feels like more time, will bring more energy for other things. So I completely agree. And I hope our listeners get that too. I mean, I think that's why, it occurs to so many people, if they have like this side idea or side passion project. Like, I think so many times they think, oh, it's binary and I'm going to have to give up one for the other, or I don't have the time for that. But you're doing the right thing. If you literally, instead of watching, Netflix at 8:00 at night, you want to work on that thing. And guess what? It's not going to take away from you. You're actually going to go into your regular day job more excited, with more energy, getting stuff done faster, because that propeller, is there.
There is one other concept that's not mine, but and I can't go really deep into this because I'm not, into the Greek language, but there's something called Chronos. Like in the Greek language, there's like the linear time, and then there's like Chronos. So there's a different term for time where you can bend time. Mm-hmm. And what I have learned is I get more into like the intuitive and the creative in that space of the things I really want to be doing. Like I am all pro Netflix and chill. Okay. When you need a Netflix and chill, go for it. Right. But if you're doing it every day, that's when it kind of doesn't help me, or may not help anyone. Right. So if you can bend time, you'd be amazed. I mean, what you can do with the time you have. And so, people do think I'm nuts, Erin, where they're like, how are you writing a book and how are you doing a podcast? Well, first of all, I've got a village, so I can talk to you about that at a separate time. But the other part is I am bending time. I'm learning how to bend time to fit it in to make me more alive, so that when I am with my work people, I am more alive.
I love that.
Hey there, it's Erin. I'm just popping in real quick to ask you a question. Is there any chance you know someone who is looking for a keynote speaker for their upcoming event? Look, I know that many event organizers, they struggle to find a speaker who provides both tangible value and business knowledge, but that also lights their audience on fire. And I truly believe there aren't many speakers like me out there who are both former corporate executives and professionally trained speakers. And there's definitely none that roll in with an orange suitcase they unpack with their audience. Trust me on that. I would love nothing more than to bring my message of using authenticity as your strategic career and business advantage to people spinning in your universe, especially if you'd be there. I promise my talks always create an immediate buzz, but not just right after, but for months and years after the event is over. You can learn more about my message, style, and reviews, and share my speaking info by going to beauthenticinc.com/keynote-speaking. That's B, just the letter B, authenticinc.com/keynote-speaking. Or of course, we have it right in the show notes to make it easy for you too.
Let's pivot a little bit to the concept of brave. And I don't want you to define it per se, but What are some of the examples of the stories of where you said, that is what I mean by being brave at work?
Oh, yeah. So I've had, women on, I had a woman on that comes to mind. She was stage 4 cancer, breast cancer.
Mm.
And everyone was telling her to stay home and not work and all this kind of stuff. And she was like, no, like I still have gas in my tank and I'm going to, even if I make you uncomfortable, like being in,
Mm.
because let's be real, like when you have someone that ill, like most people are uncomfortable. But she was like, I still have things to give. I still have contributions to make, even at stage 4 cancer. I think that's pretty darn brave to disrupt and not just go into a hole and disappear,
Yeah.
right? Um, I think that, what I shared with you earlier when my boss died and I was not even 30, maybe 30, I don't know. And I had to write his eulogy on a cocktail napkin and get up in front of like 100 people and then lead his team. And I even went to the CEO at the time who didn't know what to do with our department. And I said, you're going to let me lead them right out of this.
Wow.
And that's pretty brave.
Yes. There's
That's
no
pretty
playbook
brave.
for that.
There is no play. That's probably the toughest thing I have ever faced in leadership. So if I can do that, I'm like, "Oh, okay, all right, well, whatever."
Yeah. Bring on everything else. It's
Bring
always
it up.
that's always the best part about going through a really tough circumstance, whether it's like a client mess up or whatever. It's like the bar is now set and everything below it feels like.
Yeah, I'm just like, whatever, whatever. Trying to think if there's one more. I think just that this is a little thing, right? That isn't a little thing. I had a situation recently and I've helped my coaching clients, just ask. The idea of just asking the little things. I've given you big examples. Here's a little example, right? So I was on the podcast and I had a guest, my dear friend now and my my co-business person, Hope Mueller. I didn't know her from Adam. And I was like, hey, do you want to write a book together? And I put myself out there. And she's like, yeah, let's do this. And then there you go. Now, we're on our 4th book together. So that might still be too big. So let's make it even smaller. Like just raising your hand in the meeting or asking for more money or, just advocating for yourself. I mean, those little moments, they add up in bravery. And what I have found, and I'm not going to define it, but I find it fascinating. The reason I named my company Brave Women at Work is it is the juxtaposition of male and female. And most women don't feel brave. So if you ask them, and if you think yourself, Erin, you're like, am I brave? Most women, they can be successful business owners. They can be, speakers. They can be, writers. And they're like, no.
Mm,
And so I wanted to kind of disrupt. And that's why the company is named what it is.
I love that. Well, I loved your example at the beginning too, when you talked about just the simple thing of taking a year in Europe, but then asking for them to hold your bank teller position. This
Yeah.
just ask. And I know one of the things that you offer up is like 10 negotiation tips.
Yeah.
That is a form of negotiation, just asking, right? What are some of your top tips that listeners maybe haven't heard before that could really help them?
On the idea of negotiation.
Mhm.
Okay. So people think this is really funny, but the biggest thing for me is prepare. So a lot of people just go in, they're really nervous, so they put it off and then they procrastinate and then they're in a key conversation and they're sweating and like, me too, right? Me too. It's not like I've mastered this. It gets scary, but you don't go in cold because they're not going in cold.
Mm,
And so you better find a buddy. You better call me. You better email me. You better do something because I want you to prepare like a mini agenda. I want you to prepare a script. I want you to do a little role play. Sorry, but you're going to have to do a little role play to make sure that when you go in, it's a level playing field, that like what you're asking for. And you almost are anticipating the objections and you know how to counter them because then what happens with a lot of women and people in general, they're not prepared. Then they go in and they start wavering.
mhm.
And I'm like, no. The art of negotiation is the ability to pause and be quiet The art of negotiation is the ability to say, no, I have to think about that. And if you're too nervous and not prepared, you're going to fold those cards. You're going to walk away too quickly. And so I would say prepare. And then, of course, like the silence, getting really comfortable with that uncomfortable pause, because the first person that's going to talk is going to lose.
I love that. I love that. The other thing, and I'm curious your take on this, I find with a lot of, same thing, women, but probably all, is they feel like it's a selfish act. And what I try to explain is it's also a demonstration of, let me just be Erin flippant, your cojones. And a lot of times, if it's the promotion or the job, like having some cojones or having some bravery,
Yeah.
to do it is something they're subconsciously looking for. So they may not recognize it at the the beginning of you asking for something. I'm curious your take on that. That it's not necessarily a selfish thing. It's also just like a demonstration of your guts and your ability to take on the bigger job. Or
Yeah, it's almost like when I tell people, so there'll be like people I've talked to, men and women alike. Are you going to apply for that job? Nah. Why not? Why not? Like, just go apply and get some interview experience. Who cares? Right. So the same thing is with asking, we're almost feeling like, oh, I can't ask. Well, why can't you ask? Like, and then I play it through with my clients. Like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? They say no. Okay, then what? Are you going to get eaten by a tiger? Like, what's happening after the no? Nothing. Nothing is happening after the no. Maybe a bruised ego, but nothing is happening after that no. And so I also tell folks, would you rather live with the no or the regret that you knew you could have asked? And then you are in a job situation where you're resentful because you know you could have gotten more money or better benefits or, whatever. I do a lot on the professional side. So why not take the risk of asking? And like you said, showing the cojones, like that bravery and like just putting yourself out there for a minute or two. The best thing in the scenario is that you could get paid and then you feel really good and you feel like, oh man, I'm getting paid what I bring to the table. The worst thing is they're going to say no. But the very worst thing is the regret that you live with just being quiet.
Yeah. Do you think people are worried about a label too? I don't know. Like
yeah, I mean, like, so, okay, I'll give you some.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh, okay, so women now, let's go back to women. So I've done lots of negotiations. I've been called opportunistic. I've been called a bitch, like that, like all that kind of stuff. But the opportunistic was like kind of hurtful because it came from another woman, actually.
When you
And
asked
like,
for something, this was.
Yeah, she's like, oh, well, she's opportunistic. And I'm like, that's nice. I'm taking care of myself. But it hurt because it was like, you're in my tribe. You're supposed to be in my tribe helping me.
Right.
But yes, I think people get worried about, are they going to be labeled as greedy? Are they going to be labeled as not, grateful? Or are they going to be? But the thing that I tell a lot of my I work with women, right? So my female clients is that the organization, we're playing a game of cards, right? The organizations, they're not tipping their cards at you and they're not playing to advocate for you. They're playing to advocate for their budget, efficiency, top line, net, margins, all that. And what a lot of folks don't understand is you are playing for yourself. And if you don't play for yourself, it's like a domino effect, like house wins every time. And, it's like, no, we're not going to do that. And a lot of women I speak with are like upset about that because they're like, how dare they? I'm like, the company doesn't care.
I quoted something like that, I think, in my last solo episode, where it's like, nobody's walking around giving two shits about you. Like, and not,
right. It's not to be like, yeah.
And it's, when you ask for help, when you ask for mentor, yes, they care about you. But the point is, nobody's sitting back going, you know what? Jet's really due for a promotion. We're kind of taking our, like, no, they just like, they're human too. They're probably worried about their own promotion,
Totally.
their goals. Like, it's, nobody's worrying about it more than you. And nobody has as much clarity, I think, as you.
Yeah, so you can't wait for your work to speak for itself, like where you're silently going, man, I'm like working 80 hours a week over here. Pick me for the promotion. It's like, they don't care.
They don't have time. What about, so in that vein, one of the things you talked about before is, showcasing your own skills and how you've had fear around that before, this whole you sell yourself. What did that look like for you? And has there been a transformation that you could share?
Oh, yeah. So I have been told many times, and this was the image I portrayed. Remember, I wasn't advocating for myself. I was very shy. So when they had like a talent review at some of the organizations I had, so what they would do is look at folks and say, who are our A players, who are our star players, who's going to advance into leadership. When my name would come up, my mentor that passed before he passed, he would say, they don't see you as management material. They don't see you as leadership material. Okay. And then it fed the imposter, right? It fed it over and over and over and over again. So then he passes. Obviously, that was a shock of my life and everyone else's. And then I showed leadership, and it's in my chapter. But guess what, Erin? They didn't give me the big job. They gave it to somebody else after 18
Even after
months.
you led everybody.
18 months. 18 months. And I had to get cojones again. And I had to be like, screw you all. Like, screw you all. And I love you, but you guys have missed it. And so I had to pivot and like pick up my own advocacy. That's when I really learned about advocacy, because I was waiting and waiting and waiting to get the promotion. And then I met this person and I came home and talked to my husband. And I was like, I just met my boss. And I didn't know, but I just intuitively know I met my boss. And I was like, how dare they? I led this team to my own detriment for 18 months and they didn't even give me a shot. And so I know all about that. I know all about like the whole kind of the peaks and the valleys. Well, again, I'm not here to show revenge, but I've gone from not being told I was leadership material to now having a team, not all direct reports, but I have a team of 62 people. So I'm doing okay.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people, you have to get burned. I just had a conversation with a relative and it was like, until it's sort of this overt sort of, wait, I'm really been burned. And you need good mentors, coaches, whatever, to make sure that you see that as fuel and not as, something that's telling you you're not good enough. But I love that story.
Hey guys, Erin here. Stop. Do not do it. Don't fast forward. I have something too important. I have a couple of very passive aggressive questions to ask you that you don't want to miss. Here they are. 1, do you find yourself often comparing yourself to others? Like, they work harder than me, they get noticed more than me, they have better luck than me, they're smarter than me. Or do you also just feel exhausted from having to always work as hard, if not harder, than everybody else to stand out and succeed? I know you have these challenges. We all do. And this is why I wrote the 50% rule. And I know you need to read another book like you need a hole in the head. But I'm telling you, this book and this rule, I'm obsessed with it. And it has changed my life. It has changed the lives of others around us. And it has also been the formula for success behind so many successful people. Savannah Bananas, Hamilton, Weird Al Yankovic. The 50% rule is the simplest shortcut to stop comparing, stop copying, stop chasing other people, and like literally compete in your league of your own. There isn't a day that doesn't go by where I stop myself and I'm like, oh, she did a talk that I wish I could do. She's got more. No, it doesn't matter. Because we don't compete in the same league. I compete in a league of my own because I am constantly 50% ruling things. So if you're interested in this concept, which, by the way, is more fun as a team sport, but at least start with yourself. You cannot miss this book. It's not only powerful, it's really freaking fun to read. That is always my number one goal. It was my number one goal with my first book. It's my number one goal with the 50% rule. I want to make it enjoyable to read it. Why? So that you read it. So if you feel like you are stuck with these comparison cramps or just all the symptoms that I talk about in the book of sleep running syndrome, self-doubt gout, and pioneer paralysis, and well, you have to read the book to find out more, then just go buy the darn book. Easiest way, go to Amazon, search the 50% rule, and I cannot wait to hear how you 50% rule things.
Let's talk about Thrive in 25.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
You said you started a podcast and you're doing these retreats and you're sort of stepping into all of these things. You have your first conference that you're doing with a couple of partners.
Yes.
What kicked that into gear?
So I've got to stop with my intuition and talking to Hope, because Hope and I are kind of fire together. I told her about 3 years ago, I'm like, because she has climb conferences. That's one of her businesses. She has Hunter Street Press for our books, and then she has climb conferences for the conference side. And I go, do you want to do a conference? Do you want to try a conference? And she said, yeah, let's do it. But we're both in corporate, so we kind of pushed it off until this year. And we wanted to make sure that this conference was unlike other conference experiences. And so we spent a lot of time kind of bantering that back and forth to say, what makes sense, all of that. So bottom line is, I came up with the concept. She always holds me accountable to my dreams. So I give her so much credit, because she's always I always, in the imposter comes in, I'm like, oh yeah, that's an idea I just threw out to the ether that just sits there. Like many of us do, I'm going to write a book. Never. I'm going to speak on a stage. Never. Right. I'm going to have a conference. Never. Hope doesn't allow me that. So I thank her for that. And so Thrive in 2025 is a 3-day conference. Obviously, Erin, you're going to be there headlining us. We're really excited to have you. We have 17 other speakers, powerhouse women that are going to be on this. And I think the big differentiator is, I have been to so many conferences, Erin. I'm assuming you are the same. I go to the conference, I'm all jazzed up. Then I land back in my life and I'm like, that was awesome. Alternate reality for 3 days. And now it's gone, So we wanted to make it different. So we're going to include a 12-month experience on the other side, with 6 months of post accountability coaching with yours truly, because I want to make sure you hit your professional goals. And then we also include 12 months of her C-suite, which is a powerful women's networking platform and really educational platform. And then Innovation Women for 12 months, which is a women's speakers bureau that helps women get on more stages. We want more women like yourself, Erin, on stages. And so it's going to be in Chicagoland in my backyard. It's going to be this late June, which we can give all the details. But I'm really excited about it. I'm really, really, really pumped for this.
Yeah. And just speaking to our listeners, from the heart, first of all, when I started 6 years ago and left corporate, I did not go to a conference. I did not get a coach. I hired some random shitty people that did things wrong. I, tried to piece it together myself. And I will tell you, the 2 times that I've really catapulted is one. I've been, I've done a bunch of courses and stuff, but one was when I joined a mastermind called Brand Builders Group that I did for 3 years. And I got my butt multiple times on a plane, and virtual too. Had to make sure the kids had all their, that my husband could handle the show, which is always so hard, and all, taking time away and spending the money. And first of all, the people that I met, I met a million great people, but there are a couple that it was oh my gosh, they've changed my life, to be in their universe, right? I think of Molly Fletcher sitting next to a table with her, who's she's sort of known as the Jerry Maguire of the female Jerry Maguire. She was a sports agent for millions of years.
Wow.
She's a big time speaker from Michigan. So I'm from Michigan. We connected. Her podcast episode is actually continues to be top 3. We've got 6 years apart.
Whoa.
It's just those little things. And then just recently I joined a speaking group called Impact 11, where it was the same thing. I'm okay, it's time to really level up. It's time to get on a plane. It's time to spend some money. It's time to be around people that are where I want to be. And so, just for our listeners, if you're ever in that swirl that Jen talks about, where, it just sits in your brain and you have these ideas, and you don't know what to do, I cannot freaking think of anything better than, to your point, not just coming to a conference, kicking out, meeting amazing people, but then having that accountability, having a year, that is gold. That is jet fuel. That is, the type of thing, if somebody says, just can't get there on my own, which guess what? Spoiler alert, most people can't, right? Yeah. So not meant to be a commercial, but just a passionate plea. And by the way, it's in Chicago. And I know not everybody listening lives in Chicago, but guess what is the freaking easiest hub? Well, quote unquote, easy. Closest hub. Sometimes Southwest.
Chicago is not always the easiest.
You can take Southwest instead of O'Hare.
Yeah.
But what an easy place. I mean, I can't think of a better time, end of June, to be in Chicago.
Yeah.
Go to Lake Michigan, enjoy. Yes, people, there are beaches in Chicago. You West
There
people
are.
don't get it. There are beaches. There's beach volleyball. There's shops. It's the best city. So, and just personally, I rarely do talks that are kind of open, if you will, these days, right? Usually it's part of
Yeah.
the institution or corporation. And so I always have people say, like, I want to come see you speak, like, come see me. And like you said, what is it, 25? How many other 20?
There's 17 other speakers that
Yeah.
like, it's like hundreds of years of experience. So we have like a Suncoast Emmy Award winner, multiple TEDx, like I think, like all the authors, like so much powerhouse.
Bobby Carlton, who runs like Innovation Women, who is a huge platform for female
Yeah.
speakers. Like, if you've ever thought about that, I'm telling you guys, this is the fast pass. So anyways, I'm super excited about it. I didn't mean to be all commercially about it, but God damn it, come to this conference. You're an idiot if you don't. No.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I have just two final questions.
Yes.
One is that we always ask our listeners for a buck that story. So this is a time where you bucked the norm, which I think you've kind of already told some of those, but a time where you really bucked the norm, went against the grain, and things turned out awesome.
Okay, so I think I'm living it right now, but I'll use like what I'm doing. So when I went through the burnout, I was talking about labels, Erin, right? So I was like, okay, I'm going to start a podcast. And I was so freaked out to put it out in the world because like everyone in the world, like my boss is going to see it. And then like it was the book. And then all these people, and I've had so many people go, what are you doing over there? What are you doing over there? Like I'm almost violating the corporate code. You know what I mean? And now people will say to me, I'm really jealous of what you're doing.
And part of the
because-
process, right? They ignore, they get mad, then they get jealous.
Yeah.
They want to know what you did.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason is because I think my trend that I'm in the middle of is I'm redefining success while I'm in the middle of a corporate career. So many people listening, and me too, like for the longest time, my identity, unfortunately, was tied up in the work of corporate. And I went through burnout and I was like, this is not sustainable for me, obviously. Like I tried this way and now it's not working. So my identity is no longer tied to my corporate career. My identity is tied to like, being a mom and like being a good friend and also being a good coach and like really helping women. Like, and it feels so much better. And this isn't like, go for the side hustle because it is a lot of work, people. Like it is a lot of work. So it's not all roses and rainbows, but it's been the trend that's worked for me. And so I would say, even though it's popular right now, I am bucking the trend in corporate because so many people get their success defined and identified with their corporate job. And I'm not there anymore.
Yeah. I love that. Before I ask the last question, where's the best place to follow you? We also will put links, people, for the Thrive in 2025 conference and some
Yes.
other things that Jeff has. So where's the best place to find you and interact?
Yeah. So my most active social is LinkedIn, and it's just under my name, Jennifer Pestikas. I also have a page for Brave Women at Work. And then you can find me on Instagram, Brave Women at Work, and then my website. So just start there if you have any questions or want to chat. So at bravewomenatwork.com.
Love it. All right. Last question. It's the easy one, softball. But what's your last final tip to make work suck less for our listeners?
So, okay. Can I give 2 tips?
Sure.
Can I give 2? Okay. I'll give you 2 tips. Okay. All right. So I'll give you 2 tips. Number 1, the first thing is to understand what's really important to you. So like a lot of people walk around and they don't know what's important, or they don't have like any time. They just don't know about themselves. So be curious about yourself. Like, go and get some value, go get those values done. Like go, and I love me some Brene Brown. Go start with Brene Brown. Like she's got all the work. Go take an assessment. Like be curious about yourself, because if you know about yourself, then you can operate better at work rather than just like going with the tide. And I think the other piece is the whole idea of community at work too. You're at work so much. So make sure you have your mentors, your sponsors, your allies, like some people that you can go to. And if you don't have that, then have your own little board outside of work, like your sounding board. And it's not just your spouse that you're complaining at every day, right? It's got to be somebody else. But don't do it by yourself. I would get some sort of community to make your life a little happier.
Yeah. Especially get yourself a hope, right? Somebody that holds you accountable to your dreams.
Yeah. Someone that's like, hey, I believe in you, even when you don't believe in yourself.
Yeah. And I love that her name is Hope. And I understand.
I know, isn't that
very
great?
much a hope. Yes. But this has been great. Thank you for coming on.
Of course.
I am so excited to follow your journey and continue to see you with your ideas and obviously to rock it with you. And hopefully some of our listeners in June as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, it's Erin with a teeny request. If you have ever gotten any value from this podcast and you'd like us to stick around, plus you want it to continue to grow so we can kind of swindle bigger and more knowledgeable guests to join us and to keep providing you with tangible and inspiring actions you can take to achieve the career and life you deserve, could you please just take 1 minute to leave us a rating and a review? Those reviews go a long way in attracting guests to the show, and candidly, they really make Nicole and I's day. And we see you. We really do. So when you have the time and inspiration, we'd love to see a rating and review from you. Thank you.